Good afternoon and welcome to the last section of our Discus Live virtual workshop. Thank you all for joining us throughout the day. Hopefully this will be some good PD for you to take into the new school year, take back to your public libraries to provide good support as well. So we're going to look at the two Infobase databases, African American History and Ferguson's Career Guidance Center in this section today. Again, any questions that come up, please pop them in chat. If you have some good ideas about how you might want to market these out to your teachers, doing different programming in your libraries, also share amongst yourselves. That's some of the best part of having these sessions, is to be able to just chat back and forth with one another and network and get some good ideas. So with the African American History database, this is just a quick little snapshot of what you're going to see that has been added to our collection. You do know that with our Bloom's literature, some of our Credo reference, we've had several different aspects of African American culture, history, and our culturegrams throughout the years, but we have really hit the jackpot on this new resource for your students. This can actually fold into English lessons, literature studies, music classes, just the whole gamut of history, controversial issues, when students are doing their projects with the South Carolina National History Day. It's just a robust place for those students to utilize these primary sources, book chapters. They have actual sections on controversies in history, searchable timelines. So if students are given assignments for a particular time period, but maybe they don't really know exactly where they want to start, they can actually peruse some of these to get started. And then notice the last bullet: videos, images, maps, slideshows. So there's all kinds of multimedia that are excellent for students who are preparing projects, for teachers who are introducing a unit. Even some of you in the libraries, both public and school libraries, may like to use some of this information for some of your different hands-on games, such as your Jeopardy games, or maybe introductions to some of your programming. You might want to pull some of the quick facts into a Kahoot, for instance, so some kind of sharing competition for the students. The second one that we're covering is Ferguson's Career Guidance Center. It has over 140 industries covered with over 1,000 professions. And we'll show you in a moment how they're broken out. There is a career interest assessment that we'll point out. There's a short version of 30 questions and a longer version of 60 questions. So they would be able to get a more in-depth kind of review and assessment if they take the longer one. You will appreciate the fact that unlike with the former product with the Peterson's career prep, unlike that product, the user is not required to answer all of the assessments in order to use other pieces of this software. So you will appreciate that. There are sample resumes and cover letters that can be downloaded in PDF format or as a Word doc, and you'll see where those are located. So if you have patrons that are working on their resumes, they would be able to utilize some of these templates that are there. Workplace skill building, asking for a job, maybe wanting to move up the ladder. Videos are available for your students on the earlier end, maybe middle school and up, that are doing career exploration. Maybe they're building their graduation plans. These are excellent for you all as well, to be able to work with your career guidance specialist. And you could even do a special session for those folks who are working with the students. And then planning your education path is going to help them to crosswalk some of the education requirements for a particular profession into where they would locate that program in South Carolina, in the region, or across the US if they plan to move away. So that's what we have coming to you next. On this next slide, this will be the final slide today. that we are placing there for you to be able to give us your feedback. We will also add this to our follow-up email. So you will be receiving the links to each of the sessions today, the recorded links, and you'll also have one more chance to give us your feedback. We certainly appreciate that. And because of you, we've been able to really tailor our purchasing and subscriptions this year to some of that great feedback that you all have given us. So I'm going to escape out of PowerPoint here, stop that share, and we're just going to jump right into our African American history. If any of you wish to follow along with this, you are certainly welcome to do so. And let's see if I can, I think I've got something going here. If you need the username and password, the Discus username and password, please email that to the Discus office. We do have, I'm sorry, I'm typing here. Discus office at statelibrary.sc.gov. If any of you need that, if you would like to kind of play around in the database as we go through it, you are welcome to email the Discus office. Desiree Thomas will provide that to you, again, in an open environment that will be on the web. We're not able to post it here publicly. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and try to see where my internet piece is here. We're just going to jump right into African American History database. And for those of you who work with already with students middle school and up, whether you're in a K through 12 private school, maybe you're at a public library, you will notice that this database is an Infobase product. So it is very similar to the Blooms in the interface and how it is actually searched and how items are saved. So that's something that will be a good transition for your students. If you are studying a unit on Maya Angelou using Blooms and your students want more information, maybe more primary documents, maybe images, etc., they would be able to seamlessly utilize this database because the layout is very similar. What is different, however, is some of the great resources. So notice along the right-hand side here, I'm going to enlarge this a wee bit. You'll see the browse resources on the right. So these are all the different types of resources that are available: maps, charts, primary sources, slideshow overviews, timelines, general topics, and videos. And notice across the top, there are also these browse features in the topic centers. So if you are doing a training with any of your maybe your homeschool parents in the public schools, the public libraries, or maybe some, an after school meeting or a department meeting at the schools. There are so many different approaches to this piece. So in addition to browsing the topics, the timelines, and the types of sources, of course, you do have the direct search that you can perform here as well. Notice there are different little playlists here for featured primary sources. So some of those that are being searched most commonly here or most often, you'll see at the top, and those do change. Featured maps, graphs. So this is also a great visual tour of the database. So if you have students who are just getting started with an assignment, this might be a great place for them to start. Notice with our featured people, we have writers, leaders, we have Harlem Renaissance figures. This database covers 500 years of African American history. And students are going to be able to explore all types of time periods, eras, cultures, movements using this resource. So I'm going to start by just going up to the top, and I'm going to do a search on James Baldwin here. So if a student just jumps in, they're used to doing Google, they jump in and just start typing and start researching there. Notice they're going to have those search results all nicely placed into tabs. So the one that is opened is the articles tab. Any primary sources, images, videos, timelines, etc., that include those key terms of James Baldwin will be curated for them just with that one search. As you all know, in educators and library world, that is actually conducting the keyword search. So it might be that the article itself is comparing James Baldwin to another author, or to his time period. It might say, as opposed to James Baldwin, this whole article is now about Maya Angelou. But again, if you see that you get some results that are maybe not as 100% all about James Baldwin, it would be because that is the keyword search. You do have options for additional search options. So if you wanted to combine those and be more specific, you could do that as well. Usually this will get a student where they need to be. Notice on the article tab, if you look all the way across to the right-hand side, you can also narrow by different types of articles. So if you are creating an assignment, or you're a librarian and you're supporting teachers who've done so, they may say, I want you to find information from a book source, from a website, and from an article in a Discus database. Okay, so they can actually filter just the biographical articles, just those that are pulled from book chapters here, encyclopedias. And then, of course, depending on the topic, you may or may not have a pro-con article, and you'll be able to see, according to your topic there, whether or not that one is available. But they're able to do this very seamlessly with a mobile device, because it is more of the scroll down piece rather than, going side to side so much in the navigation. Also, these primary sources are excellent, particularly if they are doing projects, group work. If one of your teachers are actually introducing a unit on a section, the same is true for the images that are there. So that's if they just do a direct search, but I wanted to be able to highlight for you all how powerful this database can be if they don't really know who they want to search on yet. So what we're going to do next is we're going to look at the browse section that you see just below that search window. And you can see by subject here, by different movements, the Harlem Renaissance, Black contributions to America, African-American heritage, and then the different eras and time periods. So if you have something in school or at the public library, maybe students are working on something tied to one of our social studies standards for a particular period, they can just browse the overviews of a particular time period to kind of get started to see what they might be interested in working on, and in exploring in more depth there. You will notice on this piece, I'm going to click on this video, since this is an Infobase, once again, resource. They are going to have very similar options for their for downloading different videos there. They're also going to have within articles here, they're also going to have the same types of options for downloading and using the information that they find in Bloom's literature. You still have the read aloud function that is here. So if students want to hear it read aloud,
the Great Depression hits. In the introduction of his
they are able to save to drive here. So if they're logged in with their Google account, they'll be able to save directly up to the Google Drive. Citations are available for everything there, and they can export to Noodle Tools or EasyBib. So that's always going to be there for them. And then notice also there are download options for many of the resources as far as downloading them to your device. So if you are wanting to show something in a classroom or a library setting, public library programming, and you're wanting to demo something, you would be able to pull that down onto your device for those that allow you to do that. So there are different, royalties and licensing agreements for the different content, but just know that that is available. So if you're at a school district where it's difficult to buffer, maybe the buffering isn't working, that kind of thing, that's an option for you. The share here, again, is the same as you will see in your Infobase Learn 360 and your Bloom's literature, where you can email links to topics. So if you have, maybe you're at a public library and you have a student that has asked for information, you can actually email a link to that student to access from your public library. You can also do the same if you have teachers who, maybe, when they give you, they come in and say, I need this in 30 minutes for my next class. Do you have a video on? You can certainly quickly email this piece as well. So all of that sharing is going to be the same there. The other piece that I wanted to show you within the browse here, too, besides the eras, is if we go, I do want to go into that African American heritage piece, because this does go way back. So students that may have gone through different grade levels, hearing about the same 4 or 5 people in 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, as they go on up now to middle and high school, they're going to be able to get really immersed more in some of the very original African culture. We have some of that in our culturegrams, but they were going to be able to experience more of that here as well. So again, notice on the right, this is actually taken from a book. It tells you the book that it comes from, the table of contents where it's located, and something that students appreciate now more than ever are these tags, because they're used to tagging in social media. It was different when we had just the controlled vocabulary with our Library of Congress subject headings, but this is something they can really wrap their head around. So if they're just wanting to see other African-American empires, for instance, here, articles and images, they're going to be able to easily and seamlessly do that as well. So another piece from the African-American history that I had mentioned before, when we look at browse, are the timelines. So if you have maybe a student that comes in the public library who is studying a particular time period, but they really don't know where to begin with something, they can actually view the timelines here. They can view an overview of all the timelines, the general African-American history timeline. So these are going to be more general ones. Or they can actually go and search the timeline directly as well. So if we go back one click here, go back into our browse timelines, if they are wondering where our example of James Baldwin, for instance, comes into play in timeline and history, notice what we get here. They're getting, again, we were looking at our articles before, but with the timelines, it not only places them in time here for when he published his first book in 1953, but when you're browsing it from the timeline page, and I'm going to take us back to that here, and from the general African-American history timeline, you can also search directly in that timeline. So if they want to search on James Baldwin here from the timeline itself and not just a big, broad general search, they're going to be able to see the key time period, 1953 to 63, when he published his first novel here. And there are also, if we expand this out, oops, see if we can expand it. View complete timeline. That's what I wanted to see. If you expand it out to further years, you will also be able to see different facts, like part of James Baldwin works being read during the inauguration, or other pieces that sort of bring things up to date even more as well, even posthumously after that person has passed. You'll also be able to see curriculum tools as you get in your blooms. So if you want to, come up with some additional ways to compare and contrast or help students be able to utilize the content, there's some great pieces there as well. And then something of particular interest to the public librarians, the school librarians, and the educators here are the sources that you'll find. The nice thing about the sources here, and it looks like it's kind of dragging and a little bit slow here. There it goes. The nice thing about this is you can see all of those different formats that we mentioned in the beginning, the primary sources, videos, etc. But notice on the far right, you're able to export these titles to Excel. So if you are trying to prepare something for a class as a teacher and you want to be able to pull any videos related to Maya Angelou, you want any images related to Martin Luther King Jr., you want primary sources related to Tuskegee Airmen, you would be able to pull those primary source lists to be able to see where all of that information comes from and export it to Excel. If you are wanting to compile maybe a webliography or an African American history electronic kind of handout that you could post, you would be able to pull these into an Excel file to be able to get just the timelines that are available here. This is very useful for those of you, especially upper level and high school level, because the teachers are very interested in where the information comes, when it was published, and that kind of piece when they're doing both their preps for teaching and their assignments for their student learning. I'm going to pause just a moment there to see if any of you have questions so far. Please do put those in chat. Desiree Thomas is helping me to watch the chat there. And if there's something that you saw, particularly that you have a question or you would like to be repeated, please let me know there. So we are going to, here in a moment, we're going to segue into the career piece, but I do want to also share with you within these, as I mentioned before, even with our videos or our images that you see here, if we just go into, we'll just go to the Schomburg ones here, you can see that it now filters any of those, particularly from a particular location. So these are the ones that are coming from the Schomburg Center collection here. And as we click on these to view, you're still going to be able to get the citations and other pieces for that as well. So, oh, this is another feature I think is awesome, especially if you're teaching, to be able to just use your mouse or scroll to enlarge or to minimize these pictures. So if you're showing them up on a smart board, etc. So I'm going to show you one more area under resources here. There are a lot of robust maps and charts that you will find here as well. So some of these are related to African Americans and the presidential vote. You're going to find pie charts. You're going to find good handouts for different subject areas, such as participation in World War I. So that's something else that you're going to find here that's very robust in the collection. And again, you can zoom in using just scrolling to zoom in there. Okay, I'm looking quickly in the chat. Yes, it is excellent, an excellent resource. It's something that we have not had in the past, and we really had a great need to acquire this. So just to let you know, we are, as I said before, going to be rolling out our training webinar. So we will be doing some more specifics here where we might just cover a specific section here in more detail. for you to share out some of the train the trainer kinds of pieces. If you all want to present some of this out to your school districts, out to, like I say, your homeschool groups, maybe your after school programming that you do, to tell them what's in the databases. So we will be doing additional webinars for you linked from our training page. And I'm going to go ahead, since I don't see a question on this, I'm going to go ahead and segue to our Ferguson's Career Center here. Is everyone able to see Ferguson's there now on your screen? If anybody could pop in a quick yes there. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so what you're going to find here within the Infobase, this first part is just a welcome for new users, and you can progress through this. So this is kind of nice if you don't have your patrons right there with you and they're just kind of getting started on their own. Trying to see why this keeps graying out here. But notice there are 4 easily guided buckets across the new Ferguson's Career Center with exploring careers, which are great for those that are, as I said before, middle school through high school, browsing professions, etc. The career assessment is here on the left. And this is where the student can choose to do the full 60 or the 30. I say student, but this can also apply to, stay-at-home moms that are now making that transition. All of the children are now, off to college, and they want to now look to regroup, maybe to get a new job position. Many of those who either lost their jobs or are wanting to make a transition, they can benefit from this as well. And also your veterans in public libraries, as I mentioned before, that are looking for stateside jobs and maybe wanting to see what they've learned in their military career that might still be sort of a thread that runs so true of something they would like to do in stateside. I'm going to go back to show you also, this is all pretty much self-explanatory in each of these buckets, but this is where you'll find the resumes and cover letters that I mentioned earlier in the overview. And within Ferguson's, you'll see that there are different resumes tailored for different types of positions. So you would not only have some guidance about how to write the resume here, even what not to include in your resume, but you also have some more information about updating your LinkedIn profile. So for those people who may just be starting a LinkedIn profile, this is a good place for them to start as well, to really bring their best game to their job search and to getting that next job. So there's some different tips and pieces there. If we click on the writing the resume step by step here, you'll be able to see along the right about formatting the resume sections, and all of those different pieces keyed there to sections that would be of help to them. With this, notice with the share, they can email the links to themselves with these also. So if they are actually at your public library or you're assisting them and they want to be able to refer to it later, they can certainly email that information too. So I'm just going back to the resume. You'll also have tips that are video tips about the resume, the basics on the resume. And notice the second tab at the top is where you're going to find all of those sample resumes that I mentioned to you before. That patron can actually filter these by industry on the side. So if they're wanting to go into education, for instance, they can filter just those ones that are examples for education types of careers. Experience levels, if they're just getting started, maybe they're just out of high school or they're just entering into the work world and they want to be able to look at options for maybe an entry-level position all the way up to high experience levels there. So this can kind of help them tailor the options more to what they would like to see there. Also by the resume type. So if they want to do it chronologically, functionally, if they want to actually do the curriculum vitae, they've got that there as well. As with all of the other databases, as you all know, they are able to do a direct search. So they can go up to the top of Ferguson's there and just do a direct search on something that they're looking for. If they want to do something broad, such as truck driving, again, that's still going to give them results from the articles. If there are any videos related to that particular search, they're going to be able to have those handy as well. So they can do direct searching there. And then notice too, this does allow them to go in and actually do some job searching where they can actually search the job postings here. And they can also find out if they're required to have certain kind of licensing for a cosmetology job or for a truck driving job. They could then find out if they need to do additional coursework, education, etc. So if we just wanted to search the job postings now directly, we would be able to do that. So I'm just going to type in graphic artist here. Notice this is searching throughout South Carolina, but they are able to filter the area here if they wish to do that. The job type, estimated salary, this really starts coming into play with those career guidance modules in school to be able to help the student initiate a lot of their own research there. And you will notice here, again, this is just within a 25-mile area, but you can see this one was just posted 5 hours ago there for Beaufort. And they're able to go in and view that entire job description. And they have a link to be able to apply directly. So those of you that are helping patrons in the colleges or the public libraries, that's going to be another seamless, easy piece for them to be able to do as well. So you can see the layout of this is very simple. Notice across the top, it is searching indeed. This is helpful, particularly if you're working with students. They're not out on the open web. They are using the content and searching the direct content that is current and up to date without actually being out just searching indeed.com without being through the software here. Notice also, I'm going to just go back here one moment. When we go back to our little smart menu here on the left, there are additional pieces that specifically target women, minorities, people with disabilities, particular industries. So if they're wanting to find out information there just by exploring the industries, they can do that as well. Notice they can filter on the side. So if they are interested in arts and design, agriculture, etc. Like I said before, we will be able to go into more detail with all of this as we progress through this new school year and calendar year as we come up on that to give you some more opportunities to learn more about this database. So I'm going to give you another opportunity in chat there. And I think what we're going to do, instead of me stopping and trying to record this one, we're just going to go ahead. I am going to stop the share here and stop the recording of this piece so that we can all open up. If you would like to actually speak using your microphone on this next section, you are welcome to do that. I'm just going to go and quickly go back into our Discus pages here. And I'm going to stop the